Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to Spirit Speakeasy. I'm Joy Giovanni, Joyful Medium. I'm a working psychic medium, energy healer, and spiritual gifts mentor. This podcast is like a seat at the table in a secret club, but with mediums, mystics, and the spiritual luminaries of our time. So come behind the velvet ropes with me and see inside my world as I chat insider style with profoundly gifted souls. We go deep, share juicy stories, laugh a lot, and it wouldn't be a speakeasy without great insider secrets and tips. You might even learn that you have some gifts of your own. So step inside the Spirit Speakeasy. Hey, beautiful soul. Have you ever heard of Qi? It's usually spelled Qi, but sometimes it's spelled Chi. It is the life force energy that is all around us. And today we are going to talk to a Qi expert. Actually, her field of mastership and practice and study is called Zhineng Qigong. She is a master teacher. She is a master practitioner, and her name is Reyna Lerma. She is going to teach us today all about what Qigong is, what Zhineng Qigong is, and she's going to tell us how she came to this field of study through her volunteer work as an end-of-life doula, what it looks like in supporting end-of-life care, but also how Zhineng Qigong can help each of us in our day-to-day lives to really understand and experience ourselves to a deeper and more profound level. Without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest, Reyna Lerma. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back or welcome in for another episode of Spirit Speakeasy. Our guest today is the one and only very special Reyna Lerma. She is the co-owner of Present Moment Living LLC and QiCore Inc. She leads in-person and online Zhineng Qigong classes, workshops, and retreats worldwide. She also continues to offer private instruction and individual Qi therapy to her own clients. And Reyna has been studying in Zhineng Qigong for 15 years. And in that time, she's logged over 5,000 personal practice hours and has been in retreats with master teachers for more than 1,700 hours. She knows her life path is sharing the beauty and power of this living art. Reyna intends to continue to facilitate the evolution of human consciousness as we each discover our full potential. Help me welcome Reyna Lerma. Nice to see you today.
Oh, a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to learn about Qigong and Zhineng Qigong. I think I'm still saying that right.
Oh, you're saying it perfectly.
It's a hard word.
Yeah.
How did you, well, first let me ask you, will you give us just like a starting working definition of Qigong as a whole? Clearly there's different kinds. I didn't even really realize that.
Oh, yes. Yes, there's thousands of systems. So, the Reader's Digest version, basically, Qigong comes from China, and it is, I can break up the word Qigong. So Qi is life force energy, and Gong is cultivation or work. So we use Qigong as a tool. Ultimately, in Chinese medicine, Qi is the root of Chinese medicine. So Qi is the building blocks of every single thing, seen and unseen. And so again, we cultivate with the practice of Qigong.
Well, and I think a lot of our watchers and listeners, viewers and listeners have heard of Qi in some way. We know it as energy, as that life force energy, right? It's getting more common to know that word or to hear that word at least, right?
Oh yeah, I love it. I mean, here I'm personally live in San Diego. And so Qigong is actually like becoming quote unquote hip. And so people start to learn, when they meet me and I say, oh, I'm a Qigong teacher, they're like, oh, that's awesome. And I say, oh, do you know what Qigong is? They're like, no, but I know it's cool. So, the times are changing. And as we continue to evolve and grow and learn about these, really ancient secrets, I believe it's, as a collective consciousness, we are all in this space where we're starting to become very curious and very open to learn about how we can refine our own life, on all levels. So we naturally attract what we're seeking.
I think that's such a great way to say it. And I feel like more and more as we become more sensitive or more people open to their sensitivities, we're starting to at least have some sense of like, okay, there's something to this energy thing, whether people are like empathic and kind of feel bogged down in their energy after being with all people or certain people or anywhere on
Right.
that spectrum. So, what's the difference, or I guess maybe more specifically, what is Zhineng Qigong? Am I still saying that right?
Yeah, you're saying it
Okay.
great. Yeah, I love it. I love it. It's so good. Yeah. And I mean, that's only my English version. When I hear my Chinese masters, I'm like, oh, yeah, this is just the best. I'm doing the best I can with it. But, again, to remind us, Qi, life force energy, the building blocks of the entire universe. And so Gong is cultivation or work. Now, Zhenen, we can also break down. So the ZHI, that is a wisdom, and Nen is mind. So we use the wisdom of our mind, or we can also think of our consciousness to cultivate our life force energy.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. That sounds like that's a lot to unpack. So I'm excited to kind of dive into it. So I love in your bio how it says it's a living practice. Can you it's ambient noises here where I
Mm.
am with all of the this is an emergency for everyone to learn this. Will you just kind of explain what that living practice looks like? Or maybe, I mean, I feel like I started seeing people practicing some form of Qigong before I even knew what it was. So maybe people have even seen it being practiced and didn't realize it. What does it look like when someone's, I'm sure it looks a lot of ways, but
No, absolutely. Great questions. Great questions. So, ultimately, as a living art, what does that mean? It's not a two-dimensional practice. It's a very intimate journey into awakening your own self. And what does that mean? Ultimately, Zhineng Qigong is simply a tool to, again, to awaken, to cultivate, to understand this reality. And we do that by refining our physical movements in our daily living. We know, our ancestors were not in front of these screens as much. We
yeah.
have a different lifestyle. And so this body, if you want to think about it, almost like this amazing satellite, ultimately a channel of this life force energy. And so through the movements, we start to um, refine this physical body from the habitual patterns that we may have accrued, do it to the lifestyle we have. Sometimes the traumas we've experienced in our life crystallizes in our body a certain way. And so by doing these movements over and over, again, we start to free the body from all of that. And as we free the body, life force energy penetrates through much more easily. As life force energy penetrates through much more easily, we are shown what the possibility of having a quiet mind is. So when the body's in tension, when the body's in discomfort, it's a little bit harder for some of us to be able to have that clear mind, to have that quiet mind.
Yeah.
When our mind might be busy, sometimes our emotions start coming in. And when our emotions start coming in, we're feeling the pendulum of the spectrum of emotions. And again, we continue to separate from the body. And so that's a loaded way of saying it in a way, but our consciousness and our body aren't necessarily in unison. And
Right.
so when we start to do these movements, we start to, again, open the body physically. We start to open the body emotionally. We start to open the mind. And so that, and to me, is a living art, because as we meet Zhineng Qigong, and really any practice, I'm a very big advocate. We're an open system. We don't want to say this is the way or the highway type of thing.
Yeah.
Really, again, whatever you are attracted to, I always say practice that. These body mind practices really, there's a system. It's almost like a recipe. And so if we're called to learn, we take that time to go into these practices. So the living art is that we come to meet these practices in the moment. And as we continue to go deeper into the journey, we really unfold to new dimensions of understanding of our physical body, the relationship of our physical body, the understanding of our emotions, the understanding of what is possible for our consciousness. And so, that's a whole huge topic. But to come back to your question of if we've seen it, many people are familiar with Tai Chi. So Tai Chi
Mm-hmm.
is a form of Qigong. It is more of a martial arts. And I could get into the whole different kinds of Qigongs, everything from Buddhist Qigong, Confucius Qigong, folklore Qigong, medical Qigong, martial Qigong, so many different. There's also what Zhineng Qigong is a modern system of Qigong, actually. It doesn't focus on any, I want to say dogma, but it's very, whatever you practice, let yourself explore this practice without feeling you have to, pigeonhole yourself in a certain direction. It's more about freedom, actually.
Well, it's beautiful. It sounds very accessible. It sounds like you're saying that it goes along with any belief system or non-belief system or other practices, somatic practice or yoga practice or whatever someone's doing. This can layer in as an additional way to move that energy and help them open their awareness. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it sounds like there's also, is it true with all Qigong that there's some pattern of physical movement that we're doing when we're practicing it?
Great question. Actually, so for example, in Zhineng Qigong, there is approximately 300 different meditations.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'll tell you right here, right now, I don't know all of them because it's not necessarily about, okay, I've done this next. That's doing.
Okay.
You could easily learn one practice and it can absolutely change your life. It really can. I mean, I really, really can. And so this is the beauty of a practice. It's not how many you know. It's really how deep you go into a practice.
Okay.
And so with the 300 different meditations, there's meditations, yes, of movement, but that is dynamic practice, we call it. So where we have the mindful movement. Then there's the static practice where the physical body doesn't move, but you move your consciousness. And so as an example, we can, scan the body and become very aware of the internal universe that this body is, become very in tune with our inner organs. As an example, we have many meditations to become aware of the energy of each of the inner organs, which that's a concept that for some of us hearing it now, it's like, whoa, I haven't really thought about that. We're so in the West about like the cardiovascular health, and I'm a big proponent of that. Absolutely. But what about our organ health? We're not dying of arm disease or leg disease in a way. There's liver, lung, kidney. If we were to actually have a relationship in a meditative level to our organs, we would be able to perceive what the inner landscape is. And beyond perceiving, consciously be able to send life force energy to the different organs to support their health and healing.
That's pretty incredible. So in theory, and it sounds like in practice, there's first of all, a little bit of something for everyone.
Yeah.
And it feels like what you're saying is it's really empowering in our own healing and our own ability to focus that healing energy into our own bodies for ourselves.
Yes, absolutely.
So
and
amazing.
That's a great gift that we can give ourselves. We take our own power, and support our own healing. So many of us, the Western paradigm, it's a passive healing. Many times I say, okay, this is happening, so I'm going to go to this person, or I'm going to go to that person. And I will say right here again, I'm all about building the team around you. Mm-hmm. I say the entire universe is here for you. So use what is beneficial. My message is to also know that you're your own agent in your own self-healing with your consciousness supporting your own healing. A lot of our diseases come from the fragmentation of our mind. And so when we learn the skill of meditation, when we learn that, which Qigong is part of it, is meditation, when we learn the skill of focus, when we learn the skill of having the mind be quiet and not having all of these thousands of thoughts that may be repetitive, that may be negative information ultimately, that's where we can refine and see the power of our own selves and be able to harness this qi, which even though we can't see it, we can actually support the material world with it.
That's pretty incredible to think that, that's possible in this practice that seems very teachable and very accessible to anyone who's willing to take the time to learn
Yes.
it. I like what you said about that some of the practices or modules are physical and more like, movement based. What did you call it? Like focused mindful movement versus like the internal meditation. Do you feel like it'd be good for someone who maybe feels like, oh, I have a difficult time doing the still meditation to kind of transition in on that movement based meditation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this is where, you know, um, I sound like an advertisement, but
No,
no,
it's
there
great.
really
I
is
love it. It's
something.
so informative. Already. We're
Yeah.
only a couple of minutes in, and I feel like I've learned a lot already.
There really is something for everyone. And one of the, maybe because of my own personal journey, but again, I'm a big proponent of freedom. And so even when we're doing the movement, if someone can't physically do the movement exactly right, that's perfectly fine. The more important thing is to meet yourself where you are. And so for me, the way I share, I give modifications for every single practice. If someone comes in a certain challenge, I say, okay, you can't do this. Okay, you can do it seated. Okay, you can't go this far down. Go to this length. Let yourself really explore in the moment what you are, what you can do with your body, and through time, you will surprise yourself at how much more you're able to do after. So it's a progression of, but again, and what does the mind do? The mind says, oh, I can't do that. And so we say no. And we
Yeah.
are doing ourselves a disservice by not exploring. And so I really feel, yes, when, again, many people learn about the meditative aspect, they're like, oh, I can't do it. I can't meditate. I have too many thoughts. And we aren't even trying to stop the thinking because, this is at a very deep level. We're always processing information. And that's
Yeah.
actually one of the aspects that we really talk about, the different types of qi there are. Everything is qi. Everything can be categorized in different types of qi. And so one of them is information. So information we cannot, sometimes we can perceive it, sometimes we can't. But, think about our eyes right now or our ears listening. You're cognizing everything that I'm saying. And it's, these impulses are going into the brain and telling us the story of what we're perceiving. Our eyes are perceiving simultaneously. I'm breathing. We are digesting the food, the beverage we just had. So many things. I mean, that's actually, in a way, the body keeps thinking, the mind keeps thinking, and we're processing all these thoughts. Now, when we come to a movement practice, I can guarantee you there's some practices that will bring you into the present moment. We have practices where we have the arms raised up, and we give the instructions very clearly on how to do it. I continue to share, okay, have your arms raised up without moving, 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes. You will
Wow.
not be thinking about, oh, what am I going to wear tomorrow? Or did I leave the iron on? You're like, I am breathing. I am connecting to life force energy to continue to maintain my body posture. And you, again, and there's a purpose. It's not just the torture. It's really, we're opening the energy lines of the chest, opening the energy lines, which are called meridians in Qigong and Chinese medicine. We're opening the pathways for improved lung health, for improved heart health, to open the meridians in the arms and hands and fingers. So there's a purpose to it. But beyond that, again, each of these systems is like a recipe. And the creator of these recipes understands the human mind. And so we learn anything from a very simple movement that's, literally 2 movements to practices that are over 100 movements. And so that is a process where when we come to the practice, the mind is already being trained to learn what focus is, because that's ultimately the jewel. If we can be fully present and we can be aware without being so attached, and we're simply a witness to all, internally and externally, again, this is where the skill of perception can be enhanced dramatically.
That's pretty incredible. And it's just so interesting too how there is like you said, an opportunity for anyone to come just as they are, where they are, and to do these practices and to learn them and to continue to put in the practice, I guess, and expand at the same time, maybe witnessing where we are in this present moment and resisting that urge to have self-judgment. So it seems like that's part of the practice that's like layered in naturally.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so one of my favorite quotes is, comparison is the thief of joy.
Mm-hmm.
And, in our teachings, we talk about our thoughts. We talk about not only the thoughts itself, but our relationship to the thought. And so many of us have deep roots of that comparison, of the judgment, of, I want to be this perfect being. And I'll tell you here, you already are. Like how you already are perfect. You are in this such an amazing, profound journey. I believe that when we start to awaken to that, and I always, I have 2 dogs. And so, they're masters. They don't have a watch on their, maybe only the stomach when it rumbles and like, okay, we know it's breakfast time. We know it's dinner time. We know it's walk time. Other than that, they are just these relaxed beings. And in our daily living, how much are we, as an example, the relationship to time? So many of us suffer because of our relationship to time. And in our society, we have, I'm killing time. I'm running out of time. I'm always chasing time. If we were to consciously transform that and understand that until breath leaves this body in this dimension, that all we have is time. All we have is time. And the reason I say that is that these thoughts create emotions. These emotions create tension in our body. And so Qigong is not about getting rid of anything. It's simply to strengthen the inherent ability to be in balance, to be in peace, to be in harmony. And again, the constructs of our mind sometimes impede that fully, because we can be in a practice, we can be in our daily living where I can be getting a full body massage. But if I am thinking about something that's causing me stress, that's not so easy for my body to let go, because my body doesn't know that thought is simply a thought. We're immersing our bodies into this constant storyline of so many things. And I'm not saying not to imagine, not to dream, not to focus, but if we use our imagination in worry and we create this whole complete storyline, we may not realize we start sweating. The heart starts, going faster than it really wants to in a way. Mm-hmm. We're forcing our body through these stories. And when the mind is more quiet, again, the body's like, oh, I don't need to put all my energy into this tense moment. I can just completely open and relax. When I open and relax, then the inherent ability of the balance comes right back. We're there.
One of the things I love that I've seen over just our lifetime is this like science kind of catching up to what some of these ancient systems have known forever. Like now we know scientifically the brain and where the thoughts go tell our body to produce certain hormones. And we're all very common with familiar now with like the adrenal fatigue and things like that, which are created from a signal from the brain. So what it sounds like is that Qigong has the potential to start to settle or rebalance some of those things. Am I saying that right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
How exciting.
Yeah. Yes. Very exciting. First, we come back and we assess. And this doesn't have to be with the thinking mind. It's a very visceral, you can feel it's just, how do I put this? So many of us, and I was included when I first came to this journey, I was type A plus personality, type A plus, go, 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 never enough, pedal to the metal. And, I'll just put it in my experience as I felt like I had to prove something. And I did not realize that it wasn't normal as a 27-year-old to not sleep at night. And then in the morning, slam coffee and then, go do what I was going to do and be like, oh, this is normal. When we are in harmony and balance, we have that natural energy, this life force. And so I didn't realize that I wasn't listening to the nature of my own being. And this is what I appreciate about Qigong, that it really is a nature system. So we want to tap into the rhythms of the universe. We want to tap in to the nature of our being. But, you know, again, we live in artificial lighting. You know, someone asks, how are you doing? Oh, I'm so busy. Oh, that's so great. You know, it's this culture of like running your, like, you know, you have the candle and it's not burning at both ends. I mean, you got a blowtorch like in all directions, just, and then at certain times of our life, the body says enough, like enough. And we experience a crash. And this is, again, adrenal fatigue is this emerging, you know, aspect of sometimes what it is to live this fast-paced life. But we don't know any better. And so then that compassion piece comes in of like, okay, so you start a practice like this to let your body relax, let your mind relax, let your emotions calm down, and start to see, okay, what energy do I have? And as you know what energy you have, you start to live your life with that energy. And then with Qigong, you cultivate, so you can actually learn how to have more energy. And it's not, you know, nothing against Starbucks, but, you know, it's not the espresso energy. It's just being aware, being awake, knowing your rhythms. When you live with your rhythms, when you live with your own nature, you naturally have more energy. If you're living your life in a way that is against your nature, you're naturally draining your energy. And then we wonder, why am I not so happy? Or why do I feel so tired all the time? Yeah. And so these are bigger questions. These are bigger questions that we might ask ourselves because of being quiet and hearing what's inside.
And to your point, I mean, I feel like a lot of us maybe earlier in our journey don't even realize that this high level of productivity and achievement and is not part of our nature. We think it is because that's what we're taught or programmed to believe and achieve.
Right.
So it's, some of it is a re-education of sorts. Well, the Zhineng is the wisdom, you said, right? So
yes, absolutely.
I'd love to hear more about how you came to this journey as a self-proclaimed overachiever.
Oh boy, you know, let's see. Well, I first learned about Qigong through body work. So I was a massage therapist for many years. And in massage school, we actually learned Qigong to strengthen our joints of our hands, you know, obviously of our whole body, but with the emphasis on strengthening the joints of our hands, because, you know, in massage, you do work with your hands. And as you know, so in massage school, we would do Qigong. But also in massage school, we would practice on each other. So basically every day you get a massage. So of course, as we're doing Qigong, we were more focused on let's get on the table. So Qigong was there, but it wasn't, I didn't feel so attracted to it. I knew it felt good, but I didn't feel like, wow, this is the rest of my life. Now, going back a little bit, as I was growing up, my dear mother always told me, be of service in any way that you can. So I would, throughout my life, would do volunteer work in different realms. And one day I was called to do volunteer work at a hospice. And not knowing what I was going to get into with that, of course, knowing that my journey was leading me there, but I felt, okay, you know, I want to do some volunteer work, so let me do this. And so I was doing companionship for people that were walking the journey towards their death. And in this volunteer work, they did a volunteer appreciation day, and they had many workshops. They had a little acupuncture session, a massage chair, different activities to do, and they had Qigong. And my husband, we were allowed to bring our +1. My husband came with me, and I said, "Oh, Qigong! I don't know how to explain it, but it feels good, so let's go do it." And 15 minutes workshop, and we were overlooking a cliff here in Mission Valley, and this woman just did a demonstration. We followed along. She didn't even say too much. We were just doing different movements. And there's a point where I brought my hands up and we had to have our hands in a triangle. and we aligned the center of the triangle to our third eye, which I don't even know what that was really. So as we're aligning our hands and our third eye, I feel like, I don't know, like a sun ray, like hit a drop of water on a leaf, and the refractal, energy just came to me. And I saw something I've never seen before. And I can't even really put it into words, actually. And I've never seen it since. But in that moment, I felt I was so present in a way I'd never been in my life. And in that moment, I just knew that until breath left this body, that this is what I was meant to share.
Wow.
So, yeah. And I was, 15 years ago. And of course, my monkey mind at the time said, "Are you sure? Is this, this was what is this?" And so I still had the doubt. I was a very analytical person.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what, worst case scenario, I learn a relaxation technique. But 15 years later, I love it more than I've ever loved it, really. So, yeah.
What did you see? I know you said you can't really put it into words. Was it like obviously it was a spiritual experience, but did you actually physically see colors or movement, or did you just have this knowing drop in? It sounds like maybe a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it was a combination. So I saw a vast space, and I saw like different images of my life outside of this space, but in this space was like a oneness. So
Wow.
that's all I think I could say about it in words.
That's amazing. Well, and for a lot of our listeners and viewers will have had some of these mystical type experiences for themselves, but others who maybe haven't, it is really so much happening at once in just a moment of time that is almost like so much shoved into one experience or knowing or visualization, or that it is hard to unpack and really put to words because it's a mystical experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I do feel like, at different times in our lives and on our paths, this is the story of so many people of, I was just going along and doing this one thing and growing this one segment of my life. And then all of a sudden I stumbled into this other thing and just knew or just felt or just became more curious and started moving down that path. What were the first steps for you after that? So you have this experience, and then part of you is still saying like, girl, you got a whole business over here. What do you
Yeah, what is that it's like, the analytical part that was like, wait a minute, what is this? But from my recollection, I can remember one day or 2 days later, we were going on a 5-day camping trip to the middle of nowhere with my husband. And the poor guy, all I could talk about was like, oh my gosh, I found this most amazing, like, this is my life. I can't wait to go back and you learn about it. And we came back, and I started looking up Qigong studios in San Diego. And I found several, and I called them and I said, I want to learn how to teach Qigong. And they were actually very secretive and quite off-putting. They said, we don't teach teachers. And I was like, wow, okay, that's interesting. It was very like, we only teach students, so you can come as a student, but we won't certify you. You can't. And this rambunctious person here, I was like, you can't tell me no. Like, what do you mean? This is what I'm meant to do. And of course, I went back to the source. I tracked down the woman that did the demo, and I called her and I said, I know you don't know me, but I want to do whatever it takes to teach Qigong. And she said, welcome. And we had a 2-hour conversation, and I studied with her for 9 years.
Wow.
Very closely, and always deep respects to my first teacher. So yeah, and that was the journey. So it was quite fascinating how, again, and because this is an open system, and like I said earlier, some systems are very not open. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and meaning like you can only practice this, you have to believe this, you have to focus on this, and everything else is to the wayside.
Right. Or these other systems were saying, we don't teach teachers. Like, only if you're like a lineage holder, and that means you come from a certain lineage, you're raised in the lineage. If you're an outsider, then you'll never be able to share this.
And you bring up a really good point, because a lot of people don't realize that in many systems of spiritual work, there are these kind of gatekeeping attitudes and behaviors of, it's a very exclusive thing and only certain people can do it. And like you said, you have to be from this bloodline or lineage or this form of training, or so it's pretty interesting that you experienced that. I'm sure it colored you as a teacher and healer yourself of, the type of teacher you wanted to be.
Right, right. And that's why I think I was attracted to this system in the first place. Because again, from where my upbringing, I feel I grew up very rigidly. And so freedom, I'm all about the freedom. So being open, being free, again, the whole universe, why not learn what works for your individual journey and take that? And so, yeah, absolutely. And, there's a whole on how some systems are open, and I completely appreciate the traditional practices. I know that there's a purpose. And again, people get attracted to what they're meant to be attracted to, I believe.
Yeah.
Their frequency matches with that. And that's why I say, find what works for you and keep going with that. Keep going with that.
So your teacher, the woman who led that initial workshop and then who you studied under for some time, was also a Zhineng practitioner of Qigong?
Correct. So
Very cool.
she was sharing a Zhineng Qigong practice.
Okay. Did you end up using any of the Zhineng Qigong in your work as a volunteer with people in end of life care?
Yes.
I'm just curious how it would apply. It seems like it would.
Right. And so, as I was going in the journey, I was, just allowing myself to learn what presence was at a whole nother level. And actually, throughout my journey, several years into my Zhineng Qigong journey, I decided to become an end-of-life doula. So it somehow was this beautiful 360 degree evolution for me, where, I was introduced to Zhineng Qigong through being a hospice volunteer. And then I realized, that this is a population that, yes, there's self-healing, but I will say that nowhere on this planet will someone say that you're going to live forever in this incarnation.
Yeah.
We are all meant to go through the cycle of, being in this body and being beyond it. And so I feel that the population, as people are walking towards the end of their life, that's such an intimate journey. And, just like birth is so beautiful and precious, I really feel that the end of life is also so beautiful and precious, because people are so real at that time. They might be discovering what it is to be living without any masks, to be completely authentic. And the Zhineng Qigong journey supports them in, if they have to do any forgiveness practices. We have forgiveness practices. We have what is called heartstone release practices. So something that you may have been holding inside of your heart, your entire life, to let that fully transform. And also pain management, also acceptance of what is happening in the moment, all of that. So my intention with that is to support people to be at the highest vibration possible at the moment of transition.
That's really incredible. I mean, first of all, I think the Heartstone practice that you were just talking about, releasing something that you've been holding in your heart, is great for any of us at any time.
Yes.
On our journey, let's just say that.
Right.
But how amazing to be able to support that during end of life care for people that have that advanced warning or, knowledge that that's where we're moving to, rather than sudden and unexpected. Are you also working to support the family with the practices if they're open to it?
Yes. Naturally. It's very organic. How each family is unique. Each person is unique. And so part of my Zhineng Qigong training is also to hold presence, for the person as they're walking their path towards transition, and also support the family. But, the dynamics, being very present for the dynamics, really being that, ultimately through my training, the beacon of presence, the beacon of peace and calm, because as we know, the person, it's not only the person that's journeying an end of life, it's everyone around them is going through a journey as well.
Yeah.
And so how to support that. And it's quite powerful. And it's been very, very profound in my life, actually.
It seems like the Zhineng Qigong and the end of life doula go just perfectly together. I mean, I can only imagine how many feelings and thoughts and things come up for everyone. You know, of course, the person who's in end of life care, but then also the family and the friends. And yeah, so what an amazing way to be able to have a more organized system to work with them and support that. With the people that you've supported as an end of life doula, are there any, so curious about that process, because I feel like it's kind of the, I don't know, like the last stepping stone before we're on the other side, and then that's kind of where I'm working with them. So
Yeah.
are there any commonalities that you've noticed with people who are in that process of crossing over?
I mean, there's just different levels of awareness,
Yeah.
different levels of awareness. And this is just my own opinion. In my end of life training, it's also, there's this aspect of we kind of have an influence of when we go. We are, and then this is what I'm talking about, this consciousness, this awareness within ourselves that we may know, and we may influence when. And so I feel that throughout the different people I've supported, there's just an awakening within them. You see it in their eyes, you see it. I mean, but again, some people are very different. Some people may still fight it till the very end, and so, but being present with them, for they also, are on their own journey. So I'm not there to change anyone. I'm not there to tell them this is how you should do or should be. It's like, I'm just the mirror, the loving mirror that says, okay, this is where you are. How do you want to be during this journey? So there is that thread of, I see the awareness. I see the awareness, and at times there's awareness, and then the programming of fighting it or not wanting to go or being angry and all of that. And so to support them to work through that so that doesn't deplete them even more, and they spend the last days, the last hours in the contraction. It's already, how does it feel to be that openness?
And I would imagine that if someone had been in this practice already for some time before that end of life period, I just wonder how different that period could be if someone like already had all this experience and had worked through some of those things leading up to this time.
Yes. So absolutely. Already training, already equipped. At the same time, sometimes people that are completely brand new have such a profound, because they haven't really been in these mind-body practices. And so, many times when we come and there's this truth within something, it may be your very first time and you have this completely, I've worked with people 2 days before they pass. So I did not have a lot of time with them. And so, that was a very profound, and they were actually already unconscious.
Wow.
And so I could perceive, where they were, and their body was sharing with us what was happening to them. And so there was a lot of release of toxins, I'll say, in those last 2 days as we started working together that had not occurred before that.
That's pretty amazing. And it must be even like extra validating for you as the practitioner that someone who's not even fully conscious in their body, who's actually unconscious, through the work that you've learned and practiced so deeply, you can see the effects and the changes, even if someone is not conscious and present in a conscious way.
Oh, absolutely. I could tell you stories. I mean, very quickly, if I may.
Yeah, please. We love stories.
Working with animals and Zhineng Qigong. So sending them energy, and, animals, they aren't, they don't have the ego of like, oh, you came this way to support me. It's like, okay, they will tell me when they're done. They're like, okay, I've had enough. I've had enough chi. I've had enough chi. I'm good. I can process it, or there's different things that they do to show that that's what's happening to them, because they don't care. they don't care what's happening. They're there in the field and they're absorbing the energy. Coming back to one story, when I was in training as an apprentice, we went to a skilled nursing facility, and there was different levels of cognitive awareness. And there was, I can't recall, what level, but, most people were just in wheelchairs, basically not moving. And so we did a meditation, and a woman came in, and she was basically, I don't want to say screaming, but very loudly saying very, just expletives. She was just like, I hate all of you. Really just, wow, the energy that she was spewing, was really not positive. And so the teacher, unfazed, she just went into the meditation. And so from this, negative information, this woman was basically almost yelling out. She started to become quiet. And at a certain point, we forgot about her almost because there was nothing coming out of her. And so as the meditation was ending, she started to say, I love you. I love you. I love you all. And I mean, to me, my jaw was on the ground because this woman was very combative. But, in the skilled nursing facility, they just brought her in, and no one else was responding because that was the cognitive level that they were at.
Yeah.
And so the teacher just took us through the meditation, and it was a complete night and day change. It was there, I was very young in my practice. I was like, wow, this is so powerful. This is so powerful.
That's pretty incredible. I mean, that's a really night and day change in a very short time.
Yeah. 40 minutes.
Wow. Even though that woman was very angry and clearly demonstrating that, I'm sure that there were things in her cognition that made her maybe just a little more open to being moved in that direction because of the phase that she was in.
Exactly. Right. And so she was in that open phase. So she didn't care. There wasn't that, cultural or social, like, I shouldn't say this out loud. She was like,
probably why she was releasing all that anger in the first place. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like, okay, once that was done, then something else could, the universe hates a void, we say. So it's like, once that's gone, something else can come in its place and change. What do you feel like was happening? I mean, changing her, not necessarily the thought pattern, but obviously on some level, she was receiving the words and the energy of the meditation, and it was affecting, maybe her energy was starting to match that new vibration being offered.
Ultimately, her authentic self heard it, ultimately her true being, the true aspect of herself. Because I believe deep down, as a human being, we want to be in that love and that light. That's our natural state, actually.
Yeah.
And so the meditation was simply a meditation to scan the inner body. So going through the different organs, and we weren't even purposely sending. It was more like, okay, be aware of your brain, be aware of your eyes, your nose. And so that inner awareness, that turning inward, I believe is where she met, her true self. And
wow,
so
how incredible.
Yeah.
So now that you are a Zhineng Qigong teacher, where does someone start? Like if someone's listening and is like, oh, I'm so interested in this, I'm gonna reach out to Reyna. What is the first segment or like lesson or those initial teachings? Is it a lot of practice? Is it theory first? How does that work?
It's a combination. So for me here in San Diego, we have hybrid classes. So we have in-person and online. We have a free 30-day trial to come to any of the classes free. We also offer a video library. So again, for beginners to say, okay, what are the different points that we work with? What are the energy gates? What is the dantians? What is my, first practice? What does consciousness mean? So different videos to get us acquainted and feel, that we're stepping in to this world. So I'm in this world of Qigong. So I share I share that to help us, take the journey.
And of course, we'll link your website where that 30-day offer is, I'm sure, and all of your socials and contact points in the show notes. So anyone who's wanting to find them, that's where they are.
Mm-hmm.
That's so incredible that there's that library available too, because then it's as you absorb some information. I know we've chatted before and I know some about Qigong, but I feel like it's one of those systems of endless learning, I feel, where it's like,
Oh yeah.
always more to learn, or even something perhaps you've already learned or understood. Like there's deeper layers and deeper wisdom to be had the more you want to go into it, right?
Right. And so there's different, and so we have intro classes and we have advanced classes. So to really allow people that are brand new not to feel, I might be over my head. Again, it's that, but then that's the beauty, either being in person or being online. We have such a beautiful community, I mean, many practitioners, 15, 20 years. And whenever someone new comes in, it's like, yes, I'm so happy for you, to really come in. And there isn't that, because it's really the journey is very intimate. But when you're doing that with like-minded individuals that are supporting each other by being in this loving field, that we're all here to support each other.
Yeah.
And, so that is one of the many aspects I appreciate about the practice, the deep community that's formed. Because if we're doing, and, of course, I'll say we're not going to do a Heartstone release practice in a regular class. That's more for the workshops and retreats, because things might come up. And so, we keep it more to the physical practice. We keep it more to the meditation. We keep it to the theories. And then, of course, through the journey, I also offer private instruction, private sessions. If, there's questions, there's, okay, I need support moving through something's coming up. How do I manage this? So
I think this is probably a really open answer that you're going to give, but how time consuming is the practice? I'm guessing like as time consuming as you want it to be, but if someone's like, oh, I don't, right now where I am in my life, I don't feel like I have a ton of time to integrate a new practice. Is there kind of a minimum starting point?
Well, I'll tell you, in my journey, I shared the story. I was like, wow, like this is my life. I'm so excited. I am so, completely in.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I had not learned how to practice meditation yet. And so I remember clearly when I first started my journey, I practiced 5 minutes. And I said, yes, I'm a meditator now. I practice 5 minutes. And so what I'm saying is that wherever you are, if you are like, I can't do this, I don't have enough time, you can find 1 minute.
Yeah.
And you can't, and literally you can do a practice for 1 minute. So this is where there's different, you can't do the 92 movement practice in 1 minute, but we have practices that literally are 2 movements. Wow. And you can do that. And so ideally, once we start the journey, we really take that inward contemplation and say, if I believe that this is something that can support me, how long am I willing to put into it? It's like a meal. If we really want to have a nutritious meal, it may take some time for us to prepare it. It may take some time for us to gather the ingredients. And so knowing the benefit of that nutritious meal, we're going to want to take that time. So this is the same as practice. And you can start 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, go 1 week, 2 weeks, then add another minute, then add another minute. And so ideally, once you start the journey, set a minimum amount of time. As I shared, 1 minute, 5 minutes. Keep doing that. When you get comfortable with that, add a couple more. I will say, ideally, we would love a practice to be about 30 minutes long. And I say 30 minutes because Qi circulates through the body in one cycle about 28 minutes. So a 30-minute practice, is a nice practice to be in one cycle within your body.
And is that ideally 30 minutes a day? Is it as many days a week as you can make it happen?
Ideally, it's every day. Ideally, it is every day. If we can't do every day, I recommend every other day until we start to really perceive the benefits. Sometimes in our linear mind, if we're thinking surface time, we're saying, oh, there's one more extra thing I need to put in my schedule.
Yeah.
But many of us know that once we taste and once we really perceive a deep benefit of something, we will make that time. We will make that time.
Yeah.
And
a lot of us, I think, have tried a lot worse things for 30 days than then. I always feel like, tell me if you believe this too. I always feel like I tell people, hey, if something piques your curiosity, if it kind of tickles your interest or calls to you even in a whisper, it's worth investigating a little more, because maybe it's the thing you've been waiting for.
Yes. And this is where I will bring in one of the foundation aspects of our practice that we revolve ultimately everything around. And that is the power of our intention. And so many times, the first time I meet someone, I ask, what is your intention? And so, of course, someone's like, okay, well, what does that even mean? And so, what is it in your life that you are here for?
Yeah.
And so that might be very small or that might be very big. And I'll say there's nothing ever small. That's just my opinion. We have no idea when one small little thing, how it can change our entire lives. But we want to, and some practices are not like this, actually. Some practices are like, don't think about the purpose. But we want us to be aware about what is it that we really, truly want in this life. Because that is our guiding force. And the entire universe is listening to your intention. Yeah. And it conspires to manifest it in a myriad of ways. So we always say, know what you want without being in the state of wanting. Because when things start coming in your life and we start walking more consciously, we're going to become aware of these things. And we're going to see how our intention is materializing itself in this realm. And so intention is absolutely powerful.
It's such an important thought too, because as we know, even just with universal laws, law of attraction and that kind of thing, yes, the universe hears our intention. And if we don't have an intention, sometimes it will hear something that's maybe not what we're intending. Or if we're, for lack of a better way of saying it, if we're kind of stewing on or thinking about something challenging or that we don't want continuously, we can also draw that closer to us. So.
Exactly. Right. And so when we learn what it is that we truly, truly want, and many people come to these practices with an illness or an emotional challenge, or they're just looking for something new. Well, know that, again, what you're seeking is seeking you. So when we become more clear about what it is that we want, we're going to start to see that our life is reflecting that, because we're more connected to it. And, I'll say very quickly as an example with intention, if someone comes and says, oh, well, my shoulder hurts and I want my shoulder to stop hurting. Really, that's part of the intention, but it's not the complete result of it. Meaning, yes, you want your shoulder to stop hurting, but why do you want your shoulder to stop hurting? Oh, to play tennis, to go rock climbing. Okay, well, your intention is to go rock climbing, to play tennis. What does it feel like to play tennis? What will you be wearing when you play tennis? Where will you be when you're going to be rock climbing? What is the vista when you finally climb this mountain that you've been wanting to climb? That's your intention. And then that is the driver. And so when you come to the practice and you harness life force energy, it is going to follow your intention. So we've been focusing on the physical body, but it's also how you manifest in your life.
And it sounds like you start in your practice with Zhineng Qigong, you start with someone where they are. So even if they're saying like, I'm not really clear on my intention, it sounds like through the practice, you can support them in more clearly understanding their intention.
Right. So then I invite them to say that their intention is to find their intention.
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah. So even if your intention is to find your intention, this might be for you.
Yes.
You actually, for people wanting to like, maybe they're already in a Qigong practice or who are wanting to just like really dive into the deep end, a while down the line in October, you have a pretty incredible 10-day opportunity. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So very blessed in this journey. I also co-facilitate with my husband. So
Oh,
he's also a
wonderful.
Zhineng Qigong teacher. And so that's been a great, beautiful, beautiful journey. And so in October, we're going to be in Austria leading a 10-day retreat. And this 10-day retreat focuses on, it's a healing retreat. And we give the principles of Zhineng Qigong. We support with practice. So we're practicing in a strong field for many hours. Additionally, 7 out of the 10 days, the participants are going to receive what's called Huanyan Qi therapy treatments. So Qi therapy. So therapists from around the world that know how to harness Qi and to emit Qi to others. So it's we've been doing it several years now, and I am no longer surprised at how surprised I get at the results.
Wow.
Being in this, retreat. What is retreat? We're retreating from that daily living. Many people come with various levels of challenges, some life-threatening. And so when they're in their own field, sometimes the stress of that is causing even more dis-ease. So they come to this retreat in this beautiful countryside in Austria and supported by a whole team of practitioners. Our master teacher, Master Yuantong Liu from China comes, and we take them through this program. And it's a really, really beautiful experience, life-changing.
Is it appropriate for all levels? Is this something for more advanced practitioners?
All levels. So we have Zhineng
Awesome.
Qigong practitioners and people that are completely brand new. Last retreat, someone, just found us online for a healing retreat, and they said, all right, I'm going to go to this. And
Wow.
now they applied to be a Huanyan Qi therapist.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. So it was really the thing for them then,
Right.
clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And this would be a perfect time for anyone who is interested to get in that 30-day experience to get started getting marinated a little bit. But you can find out about that initial training. You can find out more about Reyna and all of the services you offer, and this 10-day Austrian immersion retreat at, is it presentmomentliving.org?
Present.
Presentmomentliving.org.
Correct. Yes.
And of course, we'll link it in the show notes, but presentmomentliving.org. Thank you for sharing all of that. That's amazing. I want to shift gears a little, and I'm going to give you the spirit speed round.
Yay!
And I'm so
looking forward
curious to hear your answers to these questions.
Yeah.
There are 4 fun and easy, quick questions for you to answer. Will you share with us one thing that really shocked you or was unexpected about Zhineng Qigong and your journey?
What shocked me was how well I started to learn the ability to persevere through challenges in my life, like how I could navigate with clarity, with grace, with poise, where before I'd fall apart into a million pieces.
What a cool byproduct of the practice, like something unexpected that you weren't really expecting to get out of this incredible practice. I love that. If you got to spend a day in the spirit world, you got the full tour, you had time to spend time with everyone you've known who's crossed over, it's almost time to return to your life, and your guide tells you you have 1 hour left and you can spend it with anyone who's on the other side. Who do you choose and why?
Wow.
Anyone.
I think I would spend it with my grandfather I never met. He passed away when my father was 5 years old.
Wow.
And so I've just seen a picture of him, and I've connected with him. And I believe that the story that he has of his life, I would love to bring, because I'm very close to my roots, and I would love to bring that and embody it for the rest of my living days.
It's incredible. Sounds like you just have a special soul-to-soul connection with him. I love that answer. That's beautiful. Even though we have spiritual gifts and practices, we have very human lives. What's one quirky thing about you that people might be surprised to learn?
Oh my gosh, a quirky thing about me?
I feel like we all have a lot of them. But
yeah, a quirky thing. Yeah, I still deal to this day. I deal with leaving my house and I have to come back sometimes and like double check that the doors are locked. And so it makes me laugh actually. And before I used to be like really upset at myself. I'm like, oh my gosh, like you should get over this. But if I feel that I want to go back, then it's okay for me to go back. And it's really for my puppies. I'm like, make sure that the doors are locked, that the stove is off, and all of these. And I don't do it all the time, but when I catch myself and I say, you know what, if I really want to go back, and I do.
I love that. Well, it sounds like you've come to non-judgment with it, which is, I think, great.
Yeah.
And in San Diego, as in the summer, I'm sure you're checking if puppy's air conditioning's on. So.
Absolutely.
Will you leave us with a pearl of wisdom? What's one piece of advice you wish that you had had early on in your understanding of Qi, of Zhineng Qigong, of your work?
Well, another quote. I'm filled with quotes.
I love it.
I believe his name is Jonathan Swift. And his quote is, "May you live all the days of your life."
Wow. And I think a practice in Zhineng Qigong is a great way to understand the many levels of what that can mean for someone to live all the days of their life.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today, for giving us a mini education about Zhineng Qigong and your journey and what it can help and support with. I really appreciate your time, and thank you for shining your light.
Oh, thank you for yours and the work that you do as well. So very grateful for being here.
Well, thank you. Wow, I really learned so much more about Qigong and especially Zhineng Qigong, didn't you? Reyna is such an amazing teacher, and she's clearly so passionate about this work and how it can help anyone from any point, no matter where they are in their own journey, even if it is nonverbal and unconscious 2 days before they're passing, or if it's tomorrow and you're just wanting a new refreshed perspective on your journey, to learn more deeply about yourself, or even to recover from a physical illness or injury. I'm going to link all of the contact points for Reyna Lerma in the show notes. Of course, you can find her website, presentmomentliving.org. And also, I'll have that in the show notes if you're interested in hearing about her 30-day introductory courses, or even learning about this 10-day amazing healing retreat opportunity in Austria. What a fun healing adventure that might be. So make sure that you look at the show notes to connect with her either through her website or on social media. I am so grateful to Reyna Lerma for sharing her wisdom and shining her light for us today. Hopefully, your mind and heart have been opened just a little bit more to what is possible by really learning how to focus, embrace, expand the chi or energy that is available to all of us. Big hugs, lots of love. I'll see you soon inside Spirit Speakeasy.